So a new segment we're going to start this week. We're going to call it Stock Up, Stock Down. We're going to talk about the players, the teams, the sides, maybe the officials, I don't care, the coaches that you feel have acquitted themselves in match week 7, where if you were investing, whether it be financial gains, you would look at them as a stock you want to trend you or a stock you might want to fade. Paul, if I asked you for a side that you felt was that you would want to put your money in coming out of this international break, maybe leading into the next international break, where's your first stock up going? Whether it's a team, a player, maybe it's even just a storyline that
I'll tell you the player I stock up on. Liam Delap. I know it's like, I know Ipswich struggles.
No, it's good.
That is another Manchester City kid, and I think he's the next one that we're going to talk about, like we talk about Cole Palmer.
Wow. I like the stock up there. I don't like that I had him in like 3 or 4 iterations of my original fantasy team and took him out a few times. Not a big fan of that. I would agree there. I think from a stock up standpoint, I think Liam Delap is a solid shout. I'm going to go for one that's a little controversial to everyone but Anand. And I'm going to say that right now, my actual stock up is West Ham United and Julian Lopetegui, because they've actually, over the last couple weeks, shown what I believe is why the West Ham supporters were so excited for this season. Because he started to have some faith in his new signings. I still don't think the Fulkring kid is the answer at the number 9 position, and I think that was a stopgap. Let's be honest. I believe West Ham might be literally bordering on like top 6, top 8 right now if they had pulled off the John Duran signing in the summer, because I think they would have got a focal striker to actually run the offense through, and I think Duran would have been exactly what they wanted. I'm just starting to see the Jared Bowen that we remember. I'm starting to see Somerville. I'm starting to see Paqueta play. I really like the Guaido or whatever the midfielder they purchased. Like, I think they made some smart moves, and I think as we start to see that defense and Wan-Bissaka play, I think you're going to start to see the West Ham that those West Ham supporters felt. So I would be fading them on the up. Honorable mention, I mentioned it last week in the podcast. I think that you are starting to see why Chelsea wanted to pay $120 million for Moises Caicedo. And I think you're starting to see Caicedo assert himself as the number 1 or the number 2 key player outside of Cole Palmer at Chelsea. And I think it is all feeding right into the uptick in their results. I know they didn't have a great result on the weekend. And that's a sign of a team that's not ready to take the next step. But I don't think giving up like an awkward Chris Wood goal is your defensive midfielder's destroyer's fault.
I think we also need to like tip our hat a little bit to a Forest side who has shown that they're very dangerous at counterattacking. Liverpool can mail that in and tell you all about it.
Yeah, and I think that, especially for 2 guys who basically were ready to write them off as almost, either in the relegation zone or right around it. So
yeah, they were in mine.
I think my stock ups, and as a team, West Ham is on the rise, in my opinion. I think Caicedo as a player is on the rise. And I think by default, I think there's nothing you can do but say Maresca is doing a good job at Chelsea, because we all question whether him superseding Pochettino would work. Right. And the fact that he's actually has them doing what he's doing, and the fact he jettisoned all those players, yet the players all look like they're playing hard for him, I think is really important. Quickly, do you have a stock down for me right now? If you were thinking to yourself about a player in the league, something happening in the league, what's your stock down?
Ooh, stock down right now. Gosh, I did not think this one through. I will go. Well, Stock down right now. I'll go Marcus Rashford. This feels like kicking a puppy a little bit because I think he's a good kid, but I mean, he's just all accounts is he's not personally doing well there. He's not happy. He's conflicting with management. The fact is like this is a United side that, despite having some big personalities in Bruno Fernandes and having the Danish kid up top, like this is a team that really should belong to Marcus Rashford, and everything should be running through him. And he's almost non-existent in matches.
Yeah, I like that shout. I'm gonna say stock down being the Crystal Palace manager, and ultimately my reasoning behind that is I gave him all the credit in the world when he took over towards the tail end of last season for Roy Hodgson and all the efforts they did. I thought it was immense that they held on to Mark Guy and they held on to Eze. They signed Ismail Sarr. They signed the Kamada kid, who I think is a good player. They have Wharton, who has, undoubtedly had a very, very rough start to this campaign. But it just doesn't look like anything's working there. And I know you love Eddie Nketiah, but the idea that he's got Jean-Philippe Mateta sitting on the bench as a point-driven power striker, which is everything that they built the whole thing through with him and Eze, to play Nketiah running off of people's shoulders and getting nowhere near it. And I guess my thing is when I watch that, I think to myself, Arsenal need goals from the center of the pitch. And we're willing to let this guy go for $30 million because in a lot of ways, I think just like we sold the kid to Sheffield United all the years ago and we knew we fleeced him when we did, I think Arsenal deep down knew that Nketiah might be a good player, but he's not a $30 million Premier League front of the line striker. Because if they did, they would have kept him. They didn't need the money.
I think the problem with Nketiah is he's got to play off. He's got to play off somebody. Like he can't play. You can't. I don't think he's a player that you can. I mean, just his frame alone, I don't think in the Premier League you can put him up top by himself.
And I think the problem there is there's not enough teams that are willing to play a two-striker system.
I think players
are just.
Palace will never do it, but he would be perfect playing off Mateta. Like it would if you're gonna buy a striker like him, it almost is like crazy that you wouldn't play him off Mateta. But that's another.
I hear what you're saying. I just feel like I don't understand the Mateta thing. I totally understood bringing in Nketiah and setting Edouard out on loan, especially when the new manager. But I do think the new manager has to figure this out because Crystal Palace has way too much talent to be sitting down there where they are. And we all know, like, Palace fans, they get nervous early because they've done this yo-yo and they don't want to go back to the championship again, right? Like, every time they go back to the championship, the only way they get out is going and buying Wilf Zaha. And before you know it, they're going to have to go get Wilf Zaha's, like, grandson.
Out of Saudi Arabia or wherever he is.
Yeah, exactly, or wherever the hell he is playing right now or not playing or complaining about playing. So we're going to get out of here on this. Thank you so much for tuning in.